Because why? The fear that you have for other people will automatically be sent. God will send that to you as a punishment. The next one is suffering and pain. We come into this world, there's going to be suffering and pain. There's no way around that. You're going to suffer. That's the way it works. Whether you like it or not, this is part of the package being human. And we need to teach our kids there's going to be suffering. We need to learn that for ourselves. And we need to prepare ourselves to understand there's going to be suffering and to understand where is that suffering coming from. God is sending that suffering. This is part of life that you will have to live. If you live long enough, you will experience disappointment, death, divorce, problem, wife problem, husband, children, illness, all the problem in the world, you will experience those. And that is the suffering. So you need to understand that. In this world, there's going to be suffering, but this is what this is all about. How do I deal with this suffering God gonna send? And this is why I made these men so great, because they understood that concept. We don't. And that's why we fall apart. This is why we can't go on with our life, because we're thinking that it's something we did or God is unjust. God is not fair. I could have easily said, well, God, I only got 2 months. How come you took her away from me? And start getting, losing my mind, upset about it. But again, because I've learned this, and it's why I can do this video right now. It took me a week to get to it because it was very hard for me. Again, I had to run this in my head like Job. Like Job, I had to become Job. In that moment, I had to become like Job. And it wasn't easy, but I had to understand it. Because Job had confidence. He had knowledge. This is God. Just like now, I possess that knowledge. This is God who took her. He gives and takes. Is why I'm able to be here and to teach you these 4 laws, spiritual laws. And then you see these spiritual laws are manifested in our physical life. Whether we like it or not, it's going to happen to us. So again, this is number 2, suffering. There's going to be suffering and pain in this world. And Job experience. And I'm going to show you, give you an example. I remember as a kid, I used to see this lady, and it was strange to me. She would walk up and down US 1, the main highway, and she would wear bags. For years, I would see her up and down, and I couldn't understand. I said, why? She's homeless, but it didn't make sense. Then later, a couple of years later, someone came in, I ran into, and was telling me the story about what happened to her. They said she used to be a teacher, and she was married with 2 or 3 kids. I'm not sure how many kids. And the husband got in an accident. The husband died, and all the kids died. She lost her mind, and she's been homeless ever since that happened. She's been homeless, walking up and down, living on the street. Why? Because if she had understood what happened, if she had understood that this is part of the process, most likely she would not be homeless. She would be able to continue her life. But because we're not taught this, and we take it the wrong way, we're thinking we bring it up on ourselves, trying to handle something that we're not meant to handle, and God tell us that, is why some people will lose their mind. Guaranteed they're suffering, and most people, really all people, are depressed, and say, well, you're not depressed. Hey, you live long enough, you're going to become depressed. Things are going to happen to you. You can't remarry, you can't find a spouse, you can't find someone to love, you're alone, you've been single for so long, your kids giving you problem. How can you walk around? If you're not depressed, then you should be smiling about when these things happen to you. You should be smiling. You should be smiling at least 99% of the time if you're not depressed. But again, that's not true. We may not express it as severe as this woman that I use, people call her the bag woman, is because she lost complete control of reality of her life because it was devastating to her. And I do understand that. Again, when you love somebody so much and you lose them, it is devastating. You can't wrap your head around you asking millions of questions, why? And you're thinking how great and wonderful it would have been. But as I mentioned earlier, can you give these people that 0.001% of the joy of all the people in the world while they're here with you? Can you give them that? Can you provide that to them? No one can. You can't even provide it to your own self. You can't even go one day. I want you to think about something. Try to go one day smiling all day long, but not a fake smile. Sincerity. It can't be done because things gonna come that's gonna take that from you. And this is what I call Bitachon, and God is why we need to understand. One, don't fear. Two, there's going to be pain and suffering. So I'm preparing you. So this is something that every one of us should have been taught in our life, but it was not taught. It was not given to us. And because of that reason, it has created tremendous damage to us, to our lives, because why? We can't function. It's hard. When you feel like you've been deprived of something that you feel you deserve and you did not get, you feel it's unfair, you cannot let it go. You're going to be wondering about this all the time. And guess what? Wrong. Wrong thinking, wrong attitude. And this is what other religion is teaching, that you're going to get your heart desire. Well, if that's true, let's look at the Old Testament. Who do you know that got their heart desire? Your heart desire is to find God, to seek God. But because we have to live in this world that is painful, that's going to hurt us. It's going to hurt us. It's just a matter of time. You live long enough, it's going to hurt you. It's going to be disappointing. How do we deal with this? How do we keep going? And this is how these great sages, King David, Noah, Abraham, Isaac, Yaakov, Yosef, all these people were able to deal with death and tragedy in their life. They were able to continue. And you wonder, how can they continue this horrible, painful life they live? It's because they had bitachon. They had trust in God. They understood who was sending them these tests, who was sending them these problems. They understood that, and they were able to withstand the test and became stronger people. And they were able to remarry and go on with their life again. Not because they wanted to, it's because they understand their mission is not over, and they must continue this journey. They must continue this life, because God still have work for them to be done here. Just like myself, I can say it was very hurtful when Artronise Mays, she died, because we had planned our whole life together. For the next 20 years, we planned to be together, to live a life that we thought, God was going to give us. But now she's gone, and I have to go on living this life on my own. Where God gonna send me next, I don't know. Nobody knows what tomorrow going to bring. None of us. Nobody even knows if they're gonna even wake up tomorrow. Are you sure you're gonna wake up from bed tomorrow morning? Nobody knows that. So as uncertain you are about your ability to wake up the next day, how do you know or have any confidence thinking that things are going to go your way? That's why God says that I do not promise you tomorrow, because you may not be here tomorrow. You may not be here tomorrow. There's a great story I want to share with you. There was King Solomon had sent out for them to capture the leader of the Satan. He was the one who created havoc in the world, and then he had I forgot which one. It was the Satan to send to go capture. He sent his people to go capture him, and he got his. He was able to get information how to do that, how to capture this evil Satan in the world. So they would tell him usually at this time he goes to this well to drink water, and that's when he's vulnerable. That's when you can't capture him. So the men went out and they captured him. He was vulnerable. So as they were carrying, but King Solomon told these men, don't talk to him, because if you talk to him, he'll hypnotize you and you'll set him free, because he has power, he has control, his voice and stuff. Don't engage in conversation. Why don't engage in conversation? Why? I'm gonna tell you why. Because that's exactly what Eve did. Eve engaged in conversation with the Satan in the garden. She engaged in conversation with him. That's how she was able to sin, because she started talking to the Satan. So King Solomon said, don't talk to him. So they were carrying him back in a cage. They captured him. On the way to the palace, the King Solomon palace, he started laughing. So laughing. They wanted to know, the man who captured him wanted to know, why is he laughing? So when they got to the palace and they told King Solomon, did you talk to him? And they said, King Solomon, no, we did not talk to him. But they said, but one thing, King Solomon, that he kept laughing, King Solomon. We don't know why he was laughing at, but he kept laughing. So King Solomon, who spoke the language of the animals, the Satan, the birds, the trees, he knew all of these languages. So he says to the Satan, why were you laughing? And he says, Well, as your man was carrying me, I passed by this shop owner, and then there was this man in there. He was ordering these shoes, these special shoes. He wanted them to be made a certain way. And then, he was telling the man all these ideas, these concepts, how to create this shoe for him. He was gonna come by and pick it up. And he said, "Well, why are you laughing at that?" He said, "I was laughing because he thinks he's gonna be alive tomorrow morning. That's why I was laughing. He thinks he's gonna be alive tomorrow morning to wear those shoes he was having custom made." You see? So again, we are not promised tomorrow. And that is, again, we need to get our minds around these concepts, how to live in this world. Now, the number three is our plans. We all make plans. Guess what? If you're alive today, you know your plans did not go according to the way you planned. That's another third law. Your What you plan, what you think going to happen, it's not going to happen. You can do your best to try to make it come as close as possible, make your effort, but whether it succeed or fail, that's up to God. He decides if your plan is going to succeed or fail. And most of the time, it's not going to succeed if it's not lined up with God plans. If your plans are not lined up with His, it's not going to succeed. Okay? It says when you plan, your plans line up with God, then God will line up His plan with yours. But remember, we live in a world where God is controlling this world, not people. And His plans for your life, your plan will never exceed or be better than God's plan He has for your life. I had many, many plans for my life. We all did. This was one of them. I thought I was going to be with her. But guess what? That plan has changed just like that. At a blink of an eye, she's gone. Now, I don't have one right now. The only plan I have is to keep doing these videos to help you understand, for us to learn, and this priceless lesson, these four areas. And you're going to see how it's going to change your life. So again, our plans. Do not put so much hope into your own plans. You can make the effort, but again, your plans better match up with God. God's not saying for us not to enjoy this world, but there's a plan He has for every one of us. This is why these righteous men, these great men, Abraham, Moses, Yaakov, King David, King Solomon, all these great people, guess what? They didn't have a plan. Their plan was to do what God told them to do. That was their plan, to live in accordance with God. That was their plan. And again, because we don't do that, we're not living in accordance with God. We want to do our own thing. And God says, I will ruin your plans, I will spoil. And it says, man plans, God laughs. Because you actually believe your plan's going to come to pass? No. It's going to be because why? He's the creator. We are the creation. And the creator, which is the king, which is our father, he has the best plan for us. And this is one of the things that we need to understand. If you're a parent, and you remember your parents, your father has a plan. And a lot of kids, our parents had planned for our lives. Some wanted you to marry a certain person. Some wanted you to be a doctor or a lawyer. That was their plan for your life. But guess what? They're not God. So God's going to make sure and maneuver and change the entire universe just for us to meet or go where He wants us to go. It was never my plan to come down here to Florida, but God sent me here. That was His plan. And it was for me to meet Altrinice Mays, to fall in love, to experience this love that I've learned and understand through the Old Testament, what it's supposed to look like. And I had that opportunity to experience it. So therefore, and not only that, understanding, even though it was short, but I understand it and I'm able to. There is moments, I do have my moments, but again, this is not a mindset I had since when I was 5 years old. So this is something I have to keep working on, Bitachon, trusting and knowing God is running everything. No matter what happens, a door slam in your face, God is slamming the door. It's not the wind, it's not the person behind you or in front of you. It's not anyone. It is God. So you need to understand our plans most likely will fail. And it says man will only get, maybe if you're lucky, you won't even get half of the things you want in this world. Listen to that. We will not get half of the things we want in this world. Why? Because that is not the plan God has for your life. His plan will always, always, by default, be better than our own plans. And the last one is God is in control. You need to understand that. That's the fourth principle. God is in control. Everything he does is good. Just because you cannot understand it now, it hurts you, is because you using your human logic to try to understand. And God says that. Do not try to understand. Do what I tell you to do because you're not going to understand it. Why? You physical, you limited. You are a limited being. You're not going to understand the way I work. God sees everything in one shot. Everything. What I mean by that is this. Imagine I can tell you that I know what you're going to do tomorrow. Say, Victor, impossible. I say, okay, I'm going to write down everything. This is an example they gave in the Torah. I'm going to write down everything you're going to do tomorrow. And we're going to lock in the safe. And then we're going to come tomorrow and we're going to look at it. And now, when we come back tomorrow, we open up the safe and I took out the letter. I wrote down everything you are going to do, and you read it and you realize you did everything I wrote down the day before. And you say, well, how can that be? That's God. He didn't change your free choices. He only knows what you're going to do before you did. Because why? Every day is an opportunity to choose good or bad. That's all we really have, is the ability to do good or bad. Everything else is in God's hand. Everything else. So when you understand God is controlling everything, you need to understand that it's not you controlling. Success and failure is in God's hands. And you can ruin your blessing. You can ruin your blessing by limiting God because we love to think about how God's going to deliver us, right? Maybe God will use my friend who's rich and give me some money, or maybe he'll send it through the mail, maybe he'll send it through the internet, maybe he'll send someone to do this. We always trying to think how God going to fix the problem, and then what we do, we limited God, we limit him to it. Then we realize, oh, God can't do this because these things are not possible because he's not going to give me the money. Then we start to rationalize why it's not going to work because it's true. It's not going to work because we use our own logic. And now, therefore, you made yourself into your own God. By default, you made yourself into your God, your own God. You will ruin your blessing when you start to think and help God. God does not need your help. The only thing you need to do, remember this, be like Job. Remain silent. Don't think. Just go with the flow. Go with the plan God has, because why? We are the creation. And you already decided what's going to happen. So you need to decide, are you going to follow or not? Okay? You need to decide, am I going to suffer or not? These are the four basic principles we're going to be building up on and more to understand, to have Bitachon, trust in God. Again, I thank you. Share this video with your loved ones. Well, I will continue to put this out. But again, remember, this is something that we all need to do every day to remind ourselves of these four principles. And matter of fact, I told my son that last night because he's still young. I said, listen, you need to understand these four principles because it's going to happen to you. And if you want to be able to have a comfortable life and not suffer because of a loss and disappointment, you need to understand who's running this world and how you can ruin your blessing and how you would completely, your life would fall apart if you don't understand. Just like that bag lady, unfortunately, I hate to say that, but again, it's for you to understand what happens to people who don't understand that concept, these four principles. God is the one who's doing it to us. It's not people. Thank you. Share this lecture. If you say you love your loved one, you love people you love, share it. Just pass it on to other people. Subscribe. Please also write in comments. Write comments in there so other people can go in and see and say, wow, okay, this helped me. I didn't think of it this way. But again, if we had these ideas from day one, the way you feel about life today would not exist. It would not exist. You would be walking around with a smile. You would be comfortable. You would be happy with what you have, what God has given you. And I thank you for watching. As I said, writing comments. And this is for the merits of Artemis Mays, that it will help other people understand the way God runs this world. And we all seen it, but we never put it together. Okay? So these are the four laws, principles God placed in this world that is part of our lives. We need to understand it in order to be like Job, and on be Abraham, Isaac, Yaakov, all these great men, they were able to understand and move on with their lives because why? They know who's running the show. I'll see you next time. God bless. Share, subscribe, write in comments, and I'll see you next time. God bless.